think that's God calling. Is that calling? Is it?
Good morning, everyone. How is everyone? All right. We're going to be singing I Am the Place Where God Shows Up. So if you'd love to sing along and clap and stand up, you are welcome to. Am I strong enough to bear the burdens that sometimes come living this thing called life? Am I wise enough to make the right decisions when I'm standing at the fork in the road? Sometimes I wonder and ponder, only to realize I'm not alone and there's nothing I have to do on my own, 'cause I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. Here we go. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. Will I have enough to do the things I need to do to take care of myself? Will I have the health of mind and body to live a life of grace and wholeness? Sometimes I wonder and ponder, only to realize I'm not alone and there's nothing I have to do on my own, 'cause I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. Sing it with me. Good job, guys. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. All right, last time. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up.
Yes. Alexa Ehrlich and Lauren James. Love it when you're in the house. And I also love the way God shows up here. Beautiful ones, good morning. I'm Kimberly Hawkins. My pleasure. I'm the, well, you could say spiritual director or senior minister, and it's always my pleasure to welcome you all to Center for Spiritual Living Rogue Valley in partnership with Unity of Medford. I like to say that we are a spiritually progressive, radically inclusive faith community, teaching tools to transform personal lives and help make a world that works for all. We welcome each of you, no matter where you may happen to be on your own personal spiritual journey. And if there's anyone here for the very first time, we'd love you to raise your hand so we can just give you a little love. Anybody here? Welcome, welcome. So glad you found your way. If you did not receive a welcome packet, raise your hand if you would, and one of our ushers will deliver one to you. Glad to see you, and hope you'll join us afterwards for some fellowship and Michael's soup. Let's see, cast of characters this morning. Reverend Kim Bebo will be doing our invocation and reading. You've met our wonderful musicians, Alexa Ehrlich and Lauren James. And Carol Wythe, one of our prayer practitioners, led the meditation this morning and is sitting high watch, which means she prays throughout the service for everyone here and everyone watching online, and welcome to those who are watching online. I'm going to invite you, if you have not already, to please put your cell phones off or in airplane mode so we won't be disturbed. And I'm going to turn it back over to our musicians. Let's take a collective deep breath as they prepare us for our invocation and reading. We'll hold our applause after this particular song.
Sky and sea, you are inside and all around me. Holy Mother, earth and moon and sea,
Good morning. And let us just let go of all that has happened. Let us breathe into this beautiful song. Breathe into Spirit, God within. Breathe into that God is all there is. That God is the sun, the moon, the stars, and all the spaces in between. Because those spaces are what we fill with our words, our love, our expression. And in that expression, the knowing that is all encompassing of our lives together, our lives here in this very moment. And I am so grateful for all who have made this service possible, for our beautiful musicians, our incredible tech crew, and the children, they're not children anymore, they're teens who are at teen camp this week with Ben, and just so grateful that they are able and willing and wanting to know more about what Spirit has in store for them. and they're probably having a great deal of fun, too. Anyway, it is just my pleasure to be here, and in that gratitude, I know that as Reverend Kimberly speaks her word, we too are able to take in what serves us, what our brains allow us to grok and to know. And in that knowing, I am just sometimes overwhelmed by all of that. And I'm going to release this into the law because I know that it is also. And as the universe takes it and grabs a hold and says, this is what she's asking for, this is what each one of us are asking for, I let it go and let God. And so it is.
And so it is.
Oh, don't do that. And this morning, I have just a passage from my well-used creative mind. Enlarged horizons. Now we see through a glass darkly. 1 Corinthians 13:12. Today my eyes are open more widely, and I look out upon a broader horizon. Across all the experiences I may have had, which were limited or unpleasant, I now see the rosy hue of a new dawn. Letting go of that which is little, I now enter into a larger concept of life. Dropping all fear, I entertain faith, realizing that every form of uncertainty is seeing only in part. I open my spiritual eyes to that which is wholeness, which is greater and better. Today, my eyes are open to the breadth and the height and the depth of that life which is God, that life which is good, that law which is perfect. And so it is.
The world runs fast, the spirit slow, to where we think we need to go. When we move into passing gear, the song of love is hard to hear, till everything's so loud that we're alone with what we're missing. Listen, somewhere beneath a sea of noise, we hear the angel's whispered voice. The song is there, the words are clear, and all we need is still right here. Listen, the harmony of wings in flight, the rising of the wind at night, the breaking of the ocean waves will call the heart that's half awake. The sound of every breath we take will free us all from prison. Listen. Somewhere beneath the sea of noise, we hear the
Thank you, Alexa and Lauren. That is my message. Listen, thank you. I think we're done. Thank you so much, you two. Let's see. Last week, I talked about something that we don't talk about a whole lot in New Thought called non-doership. Meaning basically that it's not us that have to figure out what to do and where to go and all of that, make things happen. If we listen and allow Spirit to guide us, we're not the doer. We're kind of the follower, and yet, since God is right within, it's all one, right? But we had some beautiful music last week. I had requested Ricky Byers' Use Me. Use me, O God, I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all I must do. And the other song I requested was Michael Gott's, Here I Am, a vessel to be used. Whatever Spirit needs of me, I will be, I will be, I will be. I get chills as I recite those words, because it's just what I believe, that we're meant, that's how life is meant to be. We're meant to be vessels. We talked about the kingdoms of consciousness, and when we first come into Science of Mind, we're all about using prayer, affirmative prayer, to manifest things we want. Nothing wrong with that. It's great to pray for good health and healthy finances and harmonious relationships, and it's God's good pleasure to give us the kingdom, right? But an even more powerful place to be than life happens by me is life happens through me when we listen. So, I truly believe, and I bet a lot of you would agree with me, that when we are able to hear, see, understand, and follow divine guidance in our lives can be filled with flow and grace and ease and peace. Are you with me on that one? You know, the ego thinks it knows what it wants all the time, but the ego is always coming from a place of fear, not love. Where God is love, the ego is fear. It's fear about lack. It's fear about I'm not good enough. It's fear about I have to compete or struggle. And all of that is nonsense. The Course in Miracles tells us, before you choose to do anything, ask me, meaning God. Ask me if your choice is in accord with mine. If you're sure that it is, there will be no fear. And again, it's not like there's a will of some white guy bearded up in the sky that wants to pull strings, that's wanting something different for us than we want. It's God. God wants the highest and best for each of his creations. So this idea of having no fear, one of my most powerful experiences, and I've shared it before, of receiving divine guidance was when I was expecting my second child, Tony. I was in my mid-30s. And I was around that age when they started to worry about the age of the mother and whether there would be abnormalities. And at the time, I don't even know if they still do this, the medical profession was suggesting a test. And, you know, they were kind of nudging me to do it. And yet I knew that even if something was wrong with the baby, it wasn't going to affect my decision to have him. And the test, sometimes they thought it might induce a miscarriage. They weren't sure. The problem is most miscarriages occur during the first 3 months. So I was conflicted, you know, because here's these, at the time I was pretty young, and when the medical profession is suggesting something, I'm taking it seriously, and my gut's saying, oh no. And so one night I was in bed, and I literally was in kind of a tormented place, and I just said, God, I don't know what to do. Please let me know. And I heard a very clear voice, and it just said, Kim. I was Kim at the time, not Kimberly. There's nothing wrong with this baby. He's just fine. And this peace came over me because I knew that that was true. I just knew. I called the next morning. I canceled the appointment. And sure enough, when Tony was born, he was perfect. They do a little ABGAR test. I don't know if they still do it, ABGAR. And he was perfect, 9 and 9. Everything was fine. But I love that. Receiving that guidance and knowing it was in accord with God's will made me feel peace, not fear. The Course goes on to say there's no strain in doing God's will as soon as you recognize that it is also your own. So last week I talked a lot about that idea of being a vessel and allowing that power for good, that presence and power to use us. But I want to talk more today about, okay, but how do we determine what that guidance is? How do we hear it? How do we receive it? And how do we distinguish divine guidance from false guidance? You know, that ego telling us what we should do and being very sure of it. So I've entitled the message, Is That You, God? And I think we have a little slide. I found this image and I loved it. You know, it's so cool. I don't know about you, but you know that when you get a call on your cell phone, if that person's in your contact list, you know who it is, right? And so I thought, wouldn't it be nice if metaphorically we could put God in our metaphorical contact list, expect to hear from God, and recognize his, her, its call when it happens. So we're just going to leave that up. I just thought that was sweet. And sometimes, you know, we have our phone on silence, right? Or we choose to ignore a call, and all that can be happening too when God calls. We can ignore it, or we can just not hear it. So how do we hear it? There are many, many ways. And if we ask for guidance and trust, it'll come. Not necessarily immediately like it did that night, not necessarily, but it'll come. I heard recently a fellow minister asking God for, show me a clear path, God. Light it up like Las Vegas so I don't miss it. And I think that's not a bad prayer, you know, or not a bad request. So I like to call this idea of receiving guidance our DGS, not our GPS, but our DGS, Divine Guidance System. I believe we're all born with that. It's standard app, if you will, a standard option. We all get it. We don't always use it, but we have it. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, said, we believe in the direct revelation of truth. The founder of Science of Mind it is. We believe in the direct revelation of truth through our intuitive and spiritual nature, and anyone can become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God. He also said that intuition is God and man or woman showing us what to do, right? That's what intuition is. So, you know, how do we hear it? I think, first of all, of course, we have to be quiet enough. Our busy lives sometimes make us miss those calls from the divine. I learned recently, and I may have shared this, when I asked a spiritual mentor, I'd like to be a clearer channel. I'd like to have that path really lit up like Vegas. Do I need to meditate more? And she suggested no. If you have a regular meditation practice, that's good enough. She suggested using ritual. And I hadn't thought of that. We don't necessarily have a lot of rituals in New Thought centers like more traditional Christian churches do or Jewish temples do. And I don't believe rituals are for God. God doesn't need ritual. It doesn't need us to practice certain rituals. But I think ritual can help us open that sight. We can help us listen better. So for the past couple months before I meditate, I have been lighting incense to remind me of the sweetness of the presence. I've been lighting a candle to remind me the light that's always there. I've been ringing my Tibetan bowl and my crystal bowl just to invoke for me a reminder that the presence is always here. It doesn't change God, it's meant to change me. So just one little trick that might help us receive answers. And then there's the waiting for answers. Sometimes that's difficult. I have a friend who is a fellow clergy person, and they're thinking about starting a lawsuit, a civil lawsuit, to get something that they've lost. And when I asked them the other day, have you pursued that? They said, no. I'm using they to protect anonymity. They said, no, I'm waiting for the nod from above. They were waiting for the green light from God and not going to pursue it until that happened and there was a clear signal. So our form of guidance can vary. Of course, in the Bible, there are all kinds of signs and symbols and dreams that guided people. I mean, I'm sure you can think of a lot of them. Just take the Christmas story, for example. Remember, in a dream, Joseph was instructed to go ahead and marry Mary, even though she had conceived a child before they were wed. The wise men, remember, followed the star that was a visible sign to lead them to Bethlehem. Before they left, in a dream, they were warned not to go home by the same way they came because of Herod, and so they departed to their country by a different way. Joseph received a dream to take Jesus and Mary to Egypt so that they'd be safe. It goes on and on. Moses in the Old Testament, remember seeing the burning bush? What a sign. That got his attention. The burning bush that wasn't being consumed by the fire, and he heard his name being called, Moses, Moses, Moses. And he was directed to go to Pharaoh and to eventually lead the Israelites out of Egypt. So there's so many examples, and I'm thinking, well, just as miracles that occurred thousands of years ago still occur today, I believe those same signs and guidance and symbols happen today if we pay attention. So how do they appear? Could be a voice, could be an image, could be a gut feeling, right? Ever get that? Ever have a gut feeling that may have been a call from God and you ignored it and you were sorry? Melanie listens, all right. I can't say I've always been so good at that. Or you honored a nudge that eventually was a good thing and you didn't realize why. So here's one of the most powerful stories. I've probably told this at some other time, but one of the most powerful stories, because I think divine guidance can guide us in small things and also in life-threatening situations, really important things. So my friend Lisa, when I lived in Arizona, is a medical intuitive. And when she was in high school, she was a good student, she was a leader, she was president of her class. She never did things like ditch class, because that's not what good kids did. One day, she got a nudge, this inner nudge to cut her afternoon class and go home. And she was like, I can't do that. I'm a good kid, what will people think? But it wouldn't let her go. It would not let her go. So she took her car and she drove home. And when she arrived in front of her house, her brother's car was there. And she thought, I can't go in because he'll catch me ditching school and I'll get in trouble. But the voice wouldn't let up. Go home. So she walked in. There was a note on the kitchen table. She didn't bother to look at it. She went into the brother's room, and he was sitting on his bed with his father's gun in his hand. That it was a suicide note. He was planning to kill himself. She interrupted that. As far as I know, he's still alive today. And that's the power of listening, even though it didn't make any sense. Spirit was trying to save his life and save the family, of course, all that pain. Now, I was teaching a class years ago at Namaste Center for Spiritual Living, and I was really tuned in to listening to messages. And I was in the grocery store one night. My son was planning to come and visit, and I knew I had 5 things on my grocery list, and I forgot the list. Ever do that? Left at home, Now, I try to remember to put it on my phone. Vivian's better at that. If you have it on your phone, chances are you have it. Anyway, don't even know if I had a cell phone in those days. So I'm in the grocery store going, okay, there's one more thing. All right, God, help me here, right? And what I heard was turn left. Turn left, that's all. So I turned left and I walked down, and that brought me to the dairy section, and I remembered, that's right, Tony had asked me to buy Greek yogurt because that's what he liked for breakfast, right? So, we don't use this GDGS all that often, if you're like me. We don't use it enough, and I'm going to encourage us to do so. So I have come up with this system that, at least for me, reminds me to start how to recognize true divine guidance from false guidance. Because, it would have been easy for Lisa to think, I'm crazy, I'm not going home. Where did this voice come from, right? So there are 4 S's involved here. True divine guidance usually comes suddenly or spontaneously, like it did that night for me in my prayer to God about Tony, like it did for Lisa, all of a sudden go home. It does not come after we sit for an hour worrying about how to do something and trying to figure it out ourselves. That's not, the result of that kind of process is not usually divine guidance. It's the best our mind or our ego can come up with. So true divine guidance comes spontaneously or suddenly, kind of out of the blue. That's the first S. The second S is it's usually pretty simple, pretty succinct. Remember my voice that said turn left, right? That's all. That's all I needed. Sometimes it's yes, do that, or don't do that. So it's simple or succinct. It's not usually a long, rambling explanation. That's not God talking. God gets to the point. The third S is divine guidance tends to be steady. It tends to be persistent. Like with Lisa, it tends not to let us go. Sometimes we choose to keep ignoring it, but usually it keeps nudging us until the opportunity to do whatever it's telling us to do or not to do passes. So it's spontaneous, it's succinct or simple, and it's steady. The fourth S is that it's always supporting us and everyone else. If divine guidance comes from God, it comes from a place of love, not the place of fear like the ego. So it's not going to tell us to do something that harms ourselves or others. It's not going to tell us we're stupid. Why didn't we get that before? It's going to be loving. It's going to be supportive. So if what your guidance is telling you came spontaneously, if it's simple, if it's steady, and if it's supportive, chances are it's not the ego. Chances are it's God calling. So things we can do, and I guess throughout my life, I was going to mention some other things, and if we have time, it'd be nice to have people share some quickies. Divine guidance can also keep us in touch with those who've departed. Shortly after I lost my mom, I was living in Huntington Beach, California. I'm just pretty heartbroken, and I was walking in the park with my dog, Cinder, and I was taking a class at the time about numinous experiences. So again, I was really tuned in, to signs. And of course, I think you all know, sometimes it's an animal who has a message, right? Or a book that drops off the shelf, or a song on the radio. I mean, those synchronicities that spirit can use to guide us. Well, I'm walking in this park near my home, and I see a spider web in a bush, and when I look at it, it is exactly the shape of an angel. I took a picture of it. I don't know if I still have it, but I was like, wow, you are here, Mom. I know you are. One night when I was in my apartment there in Huntington Beach, and I don't know why still, this was a non-smoking building. It was a non-smoking, even outside, that you couldn't smoke on the premises at all. I smelled very clearly pipe tobacco. I looked out in the hall. Nobody was there. My dad used to smoke a pipe. So my dad, I think, was giving me a little visit. There's no other explanation. So, all those clairs you talk about, there is actually, there's claircognizance, just when you know that you know. There's clairaudience when you hear a voice like I did. There's, what else? Clairsentience, you just feel a gut feeling. What did you say, Corey? Clairvoyance, yeah, you see, yeah. But there's also some, I just looked this up. It was interesting. I wasn't aware. I don't know if I wrote them down. There's a clair for taste, and there's a clair for something else. Let's see. Yes. So clairgustance is clear tasting. And clair empathy is his emotion, and clairtangency, touch. There is smell. Oh, yeah. Clairalliance or alliance, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, that's smell. I think some of those are a little less obvious than when we see something, we hear something, we just know that we know that we know. All right, so how do we clear the way to listen and hear? I have another little acronym, which is TLC. I think when we do self-care in general, when we have balance in our life, when we're not running around like chickens who've lost their heads, we're more likely to hear, see, feel divine guidance. But this is also an acronym. So the T is take time to slow down, to be in nature perhaps. A practice that I highly recommend, if perhaps you've done it, is morning pages in the morning. Write 3 journal pages, just stream of consciousness, kind of just clear your mind of anything and become centered. Clearing, take time, to meditate, of course, to pray. The L, I'm cheating here, it's learn to slow down, create balance. Learn to say no, because obviously when we say no to one thing, we're saying yes to something else that's more important. Say no to social media, for gosh sakes, for a day, or to even being so tethered to our cell phones. Learn to slow down. And the C is clear away clutter. It's been shown in studies that when we have a lot of clutter around us, we're not clear channels. So it could be physical clutter. It also can be mental clutter. Have we done our forgiveness work? Have we done our meditating to center ourselves? Have we sought therapy if we need it, even somatic practices to clear away the effects of trauma or hurts or regrets and so on? So, 4 S's. Paying attention to our DGS, our divine guidance system. TLC, taking time, learning to slow down, clearing away clutter. When we learn to be quiet, to slow down, to clear space for that still small voice within, when we learn to hear and trust it, life can indeed be filled with grace and ease, and actions clearly and lovingly guided, the path before us illumined, and the peace of God takes up room in our hearts. So my prayer is, bring it on, God. Make the path clear, light it up like Las Vegas. Let's go into prayer. So once again, whether I do it by ritual or just taking time to breathe, I honor and recognize there is one power, one presence, one God, one creator, one source in all of the universe. It is a power for good. It is a peace that passeth all understanding, a love that's beyond our human understanding and completely unconditional. It's everywhere present, always. It's all-knowing. It understands our hearts. It has counted the hairs on our head. It is closer than our hands, nearer than our breath, always. And through God, all things are possible, whether it's a synchronicity or what we call a miracle, a shift in perspective, a receiving something we thought was impossible. That power is all omnipotent. It's omnipotent. And we are one with it. We can't be separate from us. If God is truly all there is, then what were we made of but God's stuff? We can imagine we're separate. We can feel separate, but we are not. And so I speak my word as we pray this morning for those affected by the wildfires in California, knowing that God is right there. That peace of God that passeth understanding, that nudge for others to help, all of that is happening through the power and presence of that one mind, so that all things eventually work together for the good. Sometimes that's hard to imagine, that's hard to fathom, but that is the spiritual truth of this being that is never absent. I speak my word for us this week, whether we're listening online or here today, that we do indeed engage our DGS, our divine guidance system, that we listen, that we follow, that we take advantage of that app that we came installed with that can allow us to make decisions and be at peace about it, to act from that place of love and tender, loving care for ourselves and others. So whether it's involving ritual or just taking a moment to breathe, to center ourselves, to clear clutter, to be present with nature, to notice if an animal crosses our path and what meaning it might have for us. Gosh, life can be so rich, so beautiful, so guided, so lovely. No matter what is happening, we are one with that which created us. I give thanks to know these truths. I give thanks for the ears to hear, the eyes to see, the intuition to feel, and for the fact that that path can indeed be lit up so I can see and know and trust. I release this word, knowing as all prayers it is heard, it is answered, and I invite us to say together, so it is. Amen. You know, I think we have a little time. Corey, you got your mic handy? Oh, thank you, Ellen. Thank you. I think we have a little time. Would anybody like to share a quick story of divine guidance? Sal has his hand up. Corey?
Not a story.
Okay, whatever. A comment?
All the intuitions that I get and all the communications I get only happen in the moment. Mm-hmm. My feet have to be on the ground, and I have to be in the moment.
Uh-huh. You have to be present.
You've got to be present.
Thank you for that, Sal. Yes, thank you. Let's see, somebody there? Patricia, is it? Okay, he'll be over to you in a minute.
Well, a number of years ago, I had a cousin who was actively dying, and he was in a facility just a couple of minutes from my house. And I kind of go to bed late, about 11 or 12. And I wake up sometimes 4 or 5 in the morning, but I woke up at 2. And I thought, you're not where you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be with your cousin. And so I wrote a note quickly, put it on the bathroom mirror so my husband wouldn't worry, dressed and went. And it's not until your talk, Kimberly, that I realize
You were guided.
I was guided by God, and I didn't think of it at all at that time.
Wow. Wow,
So
Mary.
thank you very much for this talk.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you. I think Patricia had something. Corey.
My husband Morgan has been gone for 14 years. A couple years after he was gone, I started thinking about a relationship with someone. And I was sitting on my porch one day, and again, it's a gut feeling. I'm sitting there, and I'm starting to think of what I would do to have that happen. And Spirit said, no, Patricia, you would be too attached to that one person, and your purpose is to be with people. And so that's what it is, to be an example and a way shower. And so that is my purpose and my gift.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you. All right, we got one more over here, Jim Haas.
Hold it close. Yeah, I would like to lecture on the book I just finished, Slow Down. I even gave one to Alexa, but I'd recommend it highly. It's very profound, and it tells us not just how to slow down, how we can have a balanced economy without pollution. It takes care of global warming.
Who wrote Slow Down, Jim?
Japanese author, I can't remember
Okay.
it, but look it up.
All right.
And I think anybody here would really
What a
enjoy
joy.
it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Are we complete for now? Oh, one more, Ellen.
So I lost my mom in 22, and we had a lot of negative energy between us. And but that all just dissolved when she passed away. Anyway, now and then I smell toast in the house, and I don't eat bread, and it just lifts me. Like, it's just an amazing heart opening, like, hey, Mom, you know, it's wonderful.
That's why you mentioned the smell. All right. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Yeah. All right. So I think it's time now for our tithes and offerings. I'm going to invite our ushers, Joy and Mary, to come on up. Thank you so much for your continued support, those of you who are here and those of you who are online. By the way, we have an annual meeting coming up on next Sunday after service, and we have really good financial news to share with you and a slideshow of memories from 2024. But for now, I'd like you to take your gift and place it over your heart, or place your hand over the basket if you give online, and let's say our giving affirmation together. Graciously I give from a place of love, knowing that as I give, so do I richly receive. So it is. If you give online, I invite you to place a plastic Benjamin in the basket. Thank you.
I love you, God, for your mercy never fails me. All of my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. 'Cause all my life you have been faithful, and all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire In darkest nights, you are close like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. 'Cause all my life you have been faithful, and all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything, oh Lord. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything, oh Lord. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. And all my life you have been faithful, and all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God. I'm gonna sing. And all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. Every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God.
Ah, beautiful, you all. Beautiful. Ah. So a few announcements before we break for fellowship and food. A reminder with tax season coming up, all too soon probably, we did mail your contribution statements for 2024, actually the week of Wednesday the 8th, on or about Wednesday the 8th. So look to your email to find your tax document. Drumming Circle is meeting today. It's the third Sunday, but since we have our annual meeting next Sunday on the fourth Sunday, Will and the drummers will be here. There are extra drums if you need one, so please feel free to join. Men's group meets tomorrow, and Alan wants to come up and give a little plug for men's group. Meets tomorrow at 11. Is that right, Alan?
Correct.
Here you go. I don't think it's not on. There we go.
No. Anyway, we'd like to invite any of you who are interested in receiving fellowship, being listened to, and to really promote the idea of emotional intimacy among men. I think men right now, more so than females, this is a huge generalization, are really hurting. There's a lot of men who are feeling isolated and lonely, and men are the ones that are mostly dying from deaths of despair, so-called, from drug abuse, suicide, etc., etc. So as a male gender, we need the opportunity to experience emotional intimacy, support, and brotherhood. And I would encourage any of you who feel so inclined to come and visit us tomorrow at 11 a.m. We meet every other week. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. We're so grateful. So grateful that's going on. And I think at some point we need a women's group too. Huh? Yeah, practitioners? A couple more announcements. Poetry is Spiritual Practice and Tai Chi happen Tuesday at 10 and 11:30 respectively. As I mentioned, our annual meeting is next Sunday after service. Please, everybody's welcome, whether you're an official member or not. There are a couple travel group activities coming up, so always speak to Ellen or Anita if you have questions. Women's Soak is the last Monday of the month at Jackson Wellsprings, and there's a tour of Harry and David on the 30th, so all of that coming up. Is there anything else I've missed in terms of announcements? Miracle Makers this week? Okay, at Wednesday at 10:30, Miracle Makers. Okay. What's that? Miracle Makers 11:30 with a potluck. Okay, well. Okay, so Miracle Makers 11:30. All right. One more thing I wanted to mention is I know that those who have been affected by the wildflowers are, I keep saying wildflowers. I wish that were so. By the wildfires are on our hearts. And I just want you to know that there are things going on in our denomination that I want you to know about. AHIA CSL in Pasadena with Reverend Michael Lattimore has turned their center into a shelter for people who have injured or lost, their properties and are uncertain or even just have to evacuate. And you can donate to AHIA CSL. I'll put these links in our newsletter Wednesday if you like. North Hollywood has also done the same thing with Reverend Stephen Steen. And we can make donations other places, obviously the United Way, Red Cross, California Foundation Wildlife Fund, and so on. So I will put all these suggestions in the newsletter. And of course, all of us can hold this situation and everyone affected in our prayers. So invite us all to do that. So I think that's it. Before we turn it back over to Alexa and Lauren for our closing song, I wanted to read a couple things, a couple thoughts in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. It is his day tomorrow, as you probably know. He said this: "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." How true. King also preached about the need to have 3 dimensions in our life, and this was kind of mentioned in Reverend Kim's reading. Length, breadth, and height. Length is about our connection to ourselves. Breadth is about our connection to our community. And height is about our connection to the transcendent, to the divine. If these 3 dimensions are out of whack, King said, we too will be out of whack. So this week, let's make sure, a special assurance, that we keep that connection with the height, with the divine. All right, turning it over, I'm going to invite our practitioners and ministers to come forward. They are available for prayer after service, a 5-minute miracle, we like to call it, so please don't leave here with a heavy heart. Don't forget there's a prayer box in the back so you can submit a written prayer request. Our practitioners, 12 of us, pray all week, and they get sent to Silent Unity at the end of the month. There are sign-up sheets in the social hall for our weekly e-newsletter and for name tags. So, all right, if you're able, go ahead and stand for our closing song.
One people living on